Welcome to Journey Through Sci-Fi. My name is James.
My name is Matt.
And today's episode is episode number 8 of our series on space. And we will be revisiting the Odyssey in today's episode. So we've got a couple of films which have a lot to do with that amazing film by Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, so we already covered 2001 in our first series because we were looking at AI. It's a great film that covers a lot of deep sci-fi stuff. And one of those things is space and space travel. So this week we're kind of picking that back up, but not revisiting that film, but revisiting the Odyssey. So what are the films we're looking at? So
we will be looking at 2010, The Year We Make Contact, the lesser-known sequel to 2001. And we will also be taking a look at Interstellar by Christopher Nolan from 2014. So Interstellar as well shares a lot of its lineage.
Yeah, it definitely does. It really it picks up the torch a little bit, and I think there's a conscious effort to make references in style and tone, and obviously it was a massive inspiration on Christopher Nolan and his brother.
Without a doubt, and they're both films where they're going on epic journeys. What should we start with then, Matt?
Let's start with 2010, The Year We Make Contact.
Are you sure you are making the right decision? I think we should stop.
Something's going to happen.
What?
Something wonderful.
Okay, so 2010, The Year We Make Contact, made in 1984.
Yeah, a long time after the original, isn't it? It's a big gap.
It's a big old gap, isn't it?
But I think the books were a fair bit closer.
So it was directed by Peter Hyams as well.
Yeah, I don't know him.
So he did Outland.
I haven't seen it.
With Sean Connery. Really great sci-fi film. I definitely recommend checking that one out. I'm sure we'll cover it at some point on the podcast. But yeah, that's really good. So Outland. He also did Time Cop.
Ah, cool.
Fantastic film. And he did Capricorn 1 as well, which is a film which we're not covering on the space series. But basically the premise of that film is they're faking a landing on Mars. So, yeah. Have you heard of it?
I think I've seen it. A long time ago. That rings a bell.
Yeah, it's a really, it's quite renowned in the sci-fi community. But yeah, so that's another film. And that's interesting given 2010 as well. And Stanley Kubrick, the claims about Stanley Kubrick having fixed the moon landing.
Yeah. Where do you stand on that while we're on the subject?
I don't think that's right. I'd like to believe we actually did go on the moon.
Of course.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't want to believe Stanley Kubrick was in a film studio making it all happen.
So I fully believe that Stanley Kubrick would have been capable of faking the moon landings.
Oh, definitely.
But we talked about Occam's razor when we looked at Contact, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think for some people, the most obvious explanation is not that we went to the moon and that there's this complex cover-up with rockets and Stanley Kubrick in a studio. But I actually do think the most logical explanation is we did go to the moon.
Yeah, it would explain where our technology's got to and that kind of thing since.
Yeah.
So let's choose to believe that we did.
Yeah, I don't think that's a controversial opinion, is it?
We probably need to talk about 2001 before we get into 2010 then.
Yeah.
So obviously they're two very different films. And I know Peter Hyams went to Stanley Kubrick when he was offered the film and said, "How do you feel about me taking on this project?" And Stanley Kubrick responded, "Sure, do it. I don't care."
Yeah, so I thought he's probably got... What's this, 1984? What would he have been working on? Full Metal Jacket? Or is that after? Is this after Full Metal Jacket? I can just imagine him just with his head in a box of like photos of, you know, I don't know, cupboards that he was trying to pick out for his next film. And he's like, yeah, I don't care about it. It was 20 years ago. I don't care.
Yeah, he's already forgotten all about it. It's done. It's in the in the past. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But he did say as well, don't be afraid, do your own movie.
Oh, that's nice.
So he did give him a little bit of support.
That's really nice. I think it's easy. I think we touched on this when we looked at 2001. It's easy to portray Stanley Kubrick as this sort of emotionless film psycho, which I don't think he was. I think he might have played up to it a little bit in the limited interviews and stuff that he did and his sort of public persona, but he was a relatively normal guy. He was just very intense and serious about his work, which is completely reasonable.
And it pays off in the films that he's made.
Yeah.
They've got such a high regard in history.
Yeah.
Peter Hyams approached 2010 by making a completely different kind of film. And his film has more to do with Arthur C. Clarke's novel.
Yeah, and we should recap. We probably talked about this in our older episode, but we should recap a little bit the genesis of those projects, shouldn't we? So Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick were writing the screenplay and the novel at the same time and in collaboration. It was a very much organic, collaborative process. Arthur C. Clarke, I think was aiming to get the book out before the film came out, but Kubrick kind of beat him to it. No bad blood on that, just the way it happened. And then Clarke went on to write 3 more books, continuing the story, just his own project on his own.
Yeah. And they sort of 2001, the novel came after him and Kubrick had worked on I think it was a 130-page sort of treatment for the film.
Yes, yeah.
And then the novel came
right.
about.
So that was the real collaborative piece of work.
Yeah.
And then they went off and kind of worked on their own thing.
And then Arthur C. Clarke had seen bits of the footage from the film and then kind of wrote the novel on his own back.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they differ as well, because they're completely different mediums. A novel and a film are completely different things.
Yeah.
So whereas you watch 2001 and it's quite ambiguous as to what's going on and the audience is left to come to their own conclusions about things. So it can do that because it's a visual medium. Whereas the novel has to be a bit more, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening. And 2010 seems to be going down that route. It's very much a conventional sci-fi film.
Yeah. It explains what's happening. It tells you what's happening a fair bit more. There's a little bit of mystery to it, but a lot less.
So the other big Stanley Kubrick film, which a sequel's been made to, is The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
So The Shining and Dr. Sleep have a similar problem, don't they? Because the way that the director for Dr. Sleep got around this is he made a completely different kind of film, which is more true to Stephen King's novel, as opposed to the stylistics of Kubrick.
What do you mean by that? More true to the Dr. Sleep novel or more true to the Shining novel?
I think it's a bit of both, because Dr. Sleep is a sort of it's a piece of work in itself, but you can't do Dr. Sleep without having reference to the events in The Shining.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that as a film is to reference the original film. So, but they're very different. If you watch them both, even though Dr. Sleep has certain elements which are similar to Kubrick, you would never say that Kubrick's directed it, because as a film auteur, he's very... You know when you're watching a Kubrick film.
So do you think that that's a success in Dr. Sleep? I know we've talked about this before and you didn't like it as a movie. Do you think it's successful in achieving that? So being true to 2 very different creative minds and sort of synthesizing a single piece out of it.
Yeah, I really thought about this after watching 2010, because there's no way that you could make a Kubrick film again. And if you were, there's already going to be comparisons to the original film. So the best way to go about it is just to do your own thing and try and do it in the best way you can and not imitate Kubrick too much, because he's a master. And if you just try to copy what he's done, that's all the people are going to see.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Peter Hyams is doing in this film.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what did you think of it?
I thought it was good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I thought it was good. It's not 2001. It's never going to be 2001.
No, yeah.
But it's good. It's a good little sci-fi film.
A little sci-fi, yeah, but not in the kind of, I don't know, it is a small sci-fi film, but not in the charming way of like a Europa Report.
Yeah, I think 2001 is timeless.
Yeah.
Whereas this hasn't aged as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, it's aged less well than 2001, but I think it's come into like, I think critics have given it a bit of another chance. I think it was really slated for a long time because it's not 2001. And I think people are kind of coming around to it, which meant that I went into it, and I'd kind of heard that, and I went into it with probably higher expectations than I should have done. Like, oh, this could be good. This is his own thing. You know, it could be cool. And then I did find it a little bit like there just wasn't enough going on in it. Actually, what I felt like was if they had gone on in 5 or 10 years to make the third story and the fourth story, they could have gone somewhere really interesting with it. This feels like 95% build up to something that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you with that. But I think this, again, it kind of works on that nostalgia element because it's so nice when you see those characters again and you see the Discovery 1 for the first time. And I watched a little interview with Peter Hyams, and he talks about they showed the film to new audiences who hadn't seen 2001.
Okay.
And they still cheered when they see the Discovery. This is what he was saying. So because
Americans just cheering when they see a spaceship.
Yeah, because there's like the build up.
Sorry to Americans. Jesus Christ.
There's like the build up to getting there though.
Okay.
And sort of the anticipation for it. But then the woman who was interviewing him said, "Oh, the screening that she was at, people were cheering at that moment because they recognised the Discovery 1 and they recognised Hal from 2001. So they were like, oh, it's like being back with old friends.
It's the guy from the movie.
Yeah, it's the guy from the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's that kind of aspect to it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get that. It's calling on nostalgia that is so well ingrained in the public consciousness. We talked about this before. Hal is iconic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you've seen that film or not. I really liked the opening credits, which just do like a mission report. Not opening credits, like the opening scene. That's like a mission report for 2001 to kind of catch you up on the plot and just tell you what happened in the first movie, basically. But it's presented in a really nice way. It's just text on screen. It's Hayward Floyd's actual summary report of what happened. Hayward Floyd's the guy from the start of 2001. He was sort of mission control, I guess.
Played by a different actor in this one.
Yeah.
Played by the guy from Jaws.
Yeah, Roy Scheider now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the way that was done. I thought that it was a nice sort of introduction to it, and it sums it up nicely, sets you on the right path. It's just got still images from the first mission. It then goes straight into Also Sprach Zarathustra, which I thought was very cheap, to be honest.
Yeah.
It also, was it sped up?
Which bit?
Also, the track, the music.
It might have been. I didn't notice if it was.
It's noticeably quicker just because they get to the first like
yeah.
Because in 2001 there's like 5 minutes of build up, whatever. But and they just jump straight into it for the sake of the credits.
Yeah.
It just isn't, I wish they hadn't done it because it calls attention to the lack of grandiosity.
Yeah, because the rest of the soundtrack is all sort of synthy, isn't it? It's
and it's fine. It's all right.
It's fine. Yeah, but whereas 2001 has the swells and the strings, and it just seems a bit more epic.
And you've not gone with this Kubrick epic style in the filming, so don't put it in the soundtrack because it's calling attention. It's a much more subdued film, and that is fine to do. But don't call attention to it in that way by evoking the kind of the musical score. Yeah,
that's a good point because it's adding too much to it.
Yeah.
My God, it's full of stars.
So like you said, it has those bits at the beginning and it starts on Earth as well. And we didn't see any of Earth in 2001, did we?
No.
The only bit of Earth you see is the dawn of man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but in this one, it's present day Earth, as in 2010.
Yeah.
and you see the satellites, don't you? And that's like Contact.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same. It's
probably the same one,
it's
isn't
in
it?
like New Mexico or something. I think.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the biggest one of them in America. I assume it's the same one as Contact.
Yeah. And we're introduced to what politics is like on Earth.
Yeah, so it's still Cold War, isn't it? I found that really interesting because this is 1984.
Yeah.
Which I guess like to us, born in the late 80s, didn't really witness the Cold War. It's a bit easy to characterize that end of the Cold War period as the kind of the détente starting to happen, but I don't know if that's entirely fair. I think there was still fear and tension, and people were afraid of that possibility of war.
Yeah. And it's at the forefront of this film, isn't it? Because it's all about the US and the Soviet Union's relations. And they talk about a border, don't they? There's like a border later on, and then something to do with the Soviet Union crossing it.
It's a South American country.
Yeah.
There's some sort of, because it's not Cuba. It would make sense for it to be Cuba, but it's another South. I think the context is supposed to be that there is a Central or South American country who is communist, like Cuba, but not Cuba, that the US is blockading and the Russians are coming in to support. So it's a bit, it's broadly the sort of events of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
But sort of fictionalized and set in another fake country. No, it's a real country, I think. But
yeah, and it'd be interesting to know. I'm not sure if that was going on when Arthur C. Clarke was actually writing the second novel.
Yeah, probably.
Because I know in the novel China's mentioned as well, but China have no mention in the film.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's the backdrop to the film. You've got all of this threat of war. So Floyd gets the chance to go to Discovery 1 and find out what's happened to the crew. But the only way you can do that is if the US partner up with the Soviet Union, who already have a spacecraft ready to go, and they've already worked out they will be there before the US get a chance to get there. But they need Floyd and certain US members on the team in order to successfully get to Discovery 1 and figure out what's been going on.
Yeah, the pitch from the Russian guy, who's a bit like Mikhail Gorbachev-looking guy, is like, we're going to beat you there, but we also acknowledge that we don't know what we're going to do when we get there because it's your ship, it's your computer, but we're going up anyway, so you might as well team up with us.
Yeah. And so they assemble the crew. Again, they're assembling the crew. They're getting ready to go. So they get the guy who created HAL on board, don't they?
Yeah, Dr. Chandra.
Yeah, so Dr. Chandra is a different name to what you hear in 2001.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Langley.
Yeah.
So I think Kubrick changed the name in the film in 2001, and there's some sort of discrepancy there. But it doesn't really matter. They're basically the same character.
He's the guy who invented HAL.
Yeah.
And he's got a SAL 9000.
Yeah, SAL 9000, just the female HAL.
Yeah. They don't do much with her.
No, I thought she was going to be like a main character.
Yeah, I think I'd heard of Sal when I was younger as like a thing that shows up in 2010, but no, he has one conversation with her about, I'm going to space to see Hal. What do you think about that?
And then that's it.
Yeah, and that's all we see of Sal.
Yeah.
But it's fine. We didn't need another Hal character, did we?
Yeah, it's more just to demonstrate that he's still working in sort of like AI, and that's why he's going on board, because he wants to find out what happened to his other creation, Hal.
Yeah, and it sets up as sort of an emotional payoff because he's using her to test if he can bring Hal back online. And as he's shutting her down, she asks if will I dream? And he's like, yes, all intelligent beings dream. It's a bit of a clunky line, but...
Yeah, but there's a callback later on, isn't there?
Yeah.
So that makes that bit important.
I would like to ask a question.
What is it?
Will I dream?
Of course you will dream. All intelligent creatures dream. Nobody knows why. Perhaps you will dream of Hal. Just as I often do.
So what else did you think about the space travel as well, and how Earth is depicted? Because there's a few random things that you see on Earth. So obviously there's Sal, but Floyd's house really confused me.
Why?
Because it's
he lives with like a dolphin pool.
Yeah, he's got two dolphins in a little pool.
But it was a bit weird. I thought That's awful. But I think
It is terrible, isn't it?
yeah, it would be awful. But I think we didn't see the whole thing because his wife's like marine biologist or something. She studies dolphins and she's going to do like a speech on them. So it could have been like, I don't know, built into the beach or something that might have lived on the beach.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to imagine that.
that was
as
my
what's happening.
preference for it, because if they've got dolphins in a pool, it's awful. And everyone knew that in 1984. Like, that wouldn't be, cool, dolphins in your house. Like,
Yeah, but part of me wondered if it was just what they had in the future.
yeah.
They just imagine a future where everybody's got pet dolphins.
Yeah, well, they're certainly rich as fuck if they can
Yes.
have a beachfront property with like a pool that goes up. is Roy Scheider the main character in Sequest? Did you watch Sequest?
Yeah, I did watch Sequest.
Sequest DSV.
Was that like a children's program?
Probably. I mean, I was a child when I watched it, and I thought it was very
Sequest.
grown up sci-fi. But it had dolphins in it as well. There's like a dolphin main character.
Did it have like a mermaid woman or something?
Probably.
It's like some sort of Atlantean. This could have just been me just jumping to conclusions.
I mean, that's Stingray. You might be thinking of Stingray. No, I think it might have had that. I can't even remember the premise apart from they were underwater and it's like a sci-fi show. But they had a dolphin that was like trained, and I think they could talk to it because it had like a unit on its head that like would translate its
this
beats
sounds really
into a
familiar.
voice. Yeah, and it had like a pool, and it would swim up in the like engineering section and be like, "Oh, we got to save Timmy's fallen down the Mariana Trench or whatever." But yeah, so it just reminded me of that, and I got a little giggle out of that because it's Roy Scheider with hanging out with dolphins again.
I've just looked it up. So it's set when Earth has exhausted all its natural resources.
Cool.
So people live underwater.
What? Do they? I don't remember that.
They've established
Everyone.
colonies at the bottom of the ocean, it says here. And to avoid conflicts, the Sequest, a hyper-sophisticated submarine, is responsible for protecting them.
The 21st century, mankind has colonized the last unexplored region on Earth, the ocean. As captain of the Sequest and its crew, we are its guardians. For beneath the surface lies the future.
Right, where were we?
So
on,
the dolphins.
on 2010. Yeah, you've got dolphins. They live in this like futuristic house. It's very cool. It's very 80s. It's a bit looks like a Michael Mann film. Their house, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So then all of this backstory happens, and then suddenly they go into space again,
Yeah.
and they've been in hypersleep.
Yeah, they go in hypersleep because Floyd explains to his son why they're going to use hypersleep is because if you don't use that on the way up or the way down, you go cuckoo. And that was kind of like the only reference we got to. I was really interested in that.
Yeah,
Like, what does he
I
mean
quite
by
like that
Yeah.
because it's the whole thing about being in space and how it affects you mentally, which is something we're coming across again and again. But the fact that is the reason for cryosleep, I found that a very interesting point. Because I always thought it was just because of the time difference.
Right. Well, and the cryosleep cuts that out,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Is that what he was getting at?
That's kind of what I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
But then you see like them going further afield and they have to be in cryosleep for longer and longer periods.
What, in this one?
Just in general in
right,
sci-fi.
Yeah.
But cryosleep apparently is one of the few things which, as far as people know, scientifically is not possible.
Really?
Yeah. So it's because, so we're like, 70% water?
Sure.
So-
Oh, yeah, you don't want to freeze that.
Yeah, so you freeze yourself and then your internal organs can't work.
Yeah.
So basically, when you try and thaw yourself out again, it just won't work.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
They can do it with reptiles,
Cool.
but they can't do it with people. Yes.
Surely then the technology to aim for is like some kind of pod that just slows your heart rate down to the absolute lowest safe rate and slows your breathing right down and all of this. I don't know if that would have any effect on extending your lifespan.
That sounds right, though.
Yeah, let's look into that.
Sounds right with our scientific knowledge.
I think so. We've got a good track record of knowing how science works.
So they're going into hypersleep and they're going back to, it's Jupiter, isn't it?
They go to Jupiter because that's where the Discovery is and the
of
monolith.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just orbiting Jupiter, and I think they've got an eye on it. I think they can, they're tracking the monolith from Earth,
Yeah.
but they can't do anything about it. They can't rescue the Discovery. The main threat is that the Discovery has just randomly, suddenly started pinging out of its normal orbit, and it's going to crash into one of the moons, Europa, I think,
Yeah.
or Io. So that's why they that's why there's pressure on them to get up there quickly. They can't mess around on Earth anymore.
Yeah, and they have a little look on Europa, don't they?
Yeah, that was strange. What did you think of that scene?
Yeah, it was weird. So I read about it afterwards, and so apparently later on you see Dave again, and Dave has become this star child creature, whatever.
Yeah.
This superior entity, and he's like a probe. So the light that you see is like him looking at Europa to find out if it can sustain life.
Okay.
And then that's why he runs off again, like pings off.
Oh, that's like the one thing in the film that they don't make explicit. Everything else is very explicitly explained. Okay.
Yeah, and that's in the book. It's like it's explained in the book.
So is he a probe, like an emissary of the monolith?
Yeah, from what I can gather, that's what it seems to be. And the monolith is clarified as being massive, because I know we mentioned in 2001 we weren't sure if it was massive or not, but it's massive in this.
Oh, okay. It's in the first book. It's like it's known to be massive.
Yeah.
You got your little one on the moon, which is pointing towards the one by Jupiter, which is just enormous, 2 kilometers.
So it's a big, big monolith.
Yeah.
So going back to the spaceship, what did you think about they're like airbags that pop out of the spaceship to
Yeah,
make
that was
it
cool.
get into orbit?
That was very cool, and it was quite well described.
What was the reasoning for that? Because
So-
I think I missed that bit.
So they're gonna hit Jupiter's orbit, and they want to join. I think they want to join Jupiter's orbit. So at the rate that they would be traveling to get to Jupiter, that's incredibly fast. So if you just skim Jupiter's orbit, the momentum is going to take you straight back out the other side of Jupiter's orbit, and you'll just go straight past. So you need to slow down the appropriate amount to get caught in Jupiter's gravity and then start orbiting it like a satellite.
Okay.
To do that, they're using the atmosphere of Jupiter. So they've got, the ship's not very aerodynamic, so that's where it doesn't quite make sense. But it would hit, I would have thought it would hit the atmosphere and react to it and then get caught in it. But I guess just to add to that, and also not to damage the ship, I guess, it kind of like balloons out some padding, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they call it air braking.
And then everybody has a terrible time when they start air braking.
Yeah, because it's purely theoretical at this point. They haven't actually done it in practice, and they're all scared about it. They're all worried. That girl comes up and cuddles up to Roy Scheider. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's a strange moment.
It's really odd.
It's like she doesn't have a seatbelt or something, so she comes up and she goes in his pod.
She's a professional cosmonaut.
Yeah.
What is she doing? Yeah, I thought it was a cool scene though. It looked great.
Yeah.
The models are very good in this. They weren't able to use the 2001 models, were they?
No, because Kubrick destroyed them all, so you couldn't do it again.
Yeah, he's not insane.
Yeah, which... But yeah, because I was thinking about this and I was like, because we went to the exhibit at the Design Museum when it was on.
It was great.
And it had all of these models. So I assume a lot of the models might have been from 2010? Potentially?
No, they look different.
Well, they're replicas of the 2001 ones. But
they could have been like pre-production models or something.
Yeah.
They might not have been. He might have had bigger ones made for actually shooting.
Maybe.
They were very detailed though, weren't they?
Yeah,
The ones
they
we
were.
saw. Yeah.
But they weren't the exact ones.
Couldn't have been,
No.
Interesting. So we get there and we see it, but it's all orange this time. It's covered in sulfur from Jupiter.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah,
It's
it looks
dusty.
Yeah, it looks spooky.
Yeah.
Like the inside of the ship when we get there in sunshine. It's that sort of eerie, creepy space dust.
Bloody space dust.
Yeah. Where that time it was implied to be flakes of human skin, and this time it's just mystery sulfury dust off of Jupiter.
Yeah. That's like one of the most tense moments is when they're going over to the ship, to Discovery 1, to find out what's going on.
I love a spacewalk scene.
Yeah.
Or just any time when people are outside of the ship in space.
It's risky.
It's risky, it's tense, it's scary. What did you think of that scene?
I really liked it. And it's got John Lithgow in, hasn't it?
Yeah, so John Lithgow is... So the
Third
crew...
Rock from the Sun.
Yeah, and, Interstellar later.
Yeah, he's in there as well.
Third Rock from the Sun. I absolutely love that.
That's fantastic.
You don't see that on TV much, or it's not on any streaming sites or anything, is it?
No.
I'd love to give that a rewatch.
Yeah, I'd like to watch that again.
I have caught the odd episode in the years between, and it just such a funny show. And he is a phenomenal actor in the sense that he can do like Dexter, Interstellar, 2010 and Third Rock from the Sun. It's just like insane.
All completely different kinds of roles as well.
Yeah.
So he's one of the research. He's like an engineer, isn't he?
Yeah, so the 3 American crew that are allowed to be taken up with the Russians are Floyd, who is like mission controller of the original mission and has this incredible, burden of responsibility. He feels like he sent those men to their deaths. Dr. Chandra, who is the creator of HAL and believed to be the only person who is going to be able to get HAL back up and running and get some answers out of him. And John Lithgow as Kernow, who is he's the engineer. Is he the engineer of Discovery, or is the engineer of the new mission the Americans are working on?
I think he worked on Discovery because that would make more sense for him to be there. And they say he's the person who knows the most about that ship.
Yeah. He's the guy who's going to get him in. Chandra's the guy who's going to get HAL switched on, and Floyd's just the guy.
And to get over to Discovery, they do the Wall-E trick again, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
There it is again with the extinguisher.
Yeah.
Popping over into space.
There's no, they're tethered to each other. So he goes out with one of the Russian crew.
Who is also the landlord in Spider-Man 2.
Great, very good.
I had to check it afterwards because he hasn't got a beard in Spider-Man. So I was like, I swear I know him. So, yeah, that's what he's from.
Yeah, they go out together and tensions are really high. The Russians and the Americans aren't getting along at this point because there's political tension on Earth, which is having ramifications for them as military government personnel. They're not getting along at that point, but he goes out with one of the Russians. They go out without a tether. Or they've got a tether, but they're just tethered to each other. I found that just in itself very tense and strange and risky.
Yeah. So did John Lithgow, though, as well.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they're just tethered to each other and nothing else.
And he's getting him to, he wants Floyd to tell him jokes and things like that. And he's learning Russian words, like the Russian word for chicken and things. Anything to get his mind off the fact he's just in space with nothing but this tether to this cosmonaut. Yeah,
it's very good. It's very good writing and very good acting in that scene. It's another scene that we've seen it done so many times where the breathing into a microphone inside a helmet is like the main sound effect, and it's really intense, and it always works really well. I don't think we've seen it done badly so far.
Yeah, it's always intense, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, it's a direct thing from 2001, isn't it?
Yes, it's a callback to that. Yeah, it worked well then.
Yeah.
But it's layered on top of that really nice dialogue where, he starts off, he's obviously nervous, but he doesn't want to be condescended to. So, don't tell me a stupid joke. And then like a minute later, he's like, oh, what's the punchline to that joke? I need to, he's really increasingly freaking out.
Yeah. And going back to the callbacks as well, they do the pens as well, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
But it's CGI. And I thought that was a bit of a shame because we talked about how clever it was that they did the original pens in 2001 with double-sided tape and a pane of glass. Whereas this, they're just CGI'd on and they look really bad.
Yeah, they look bad. It was also quite strange because he's using the pens. It's a bit later on, isn't it? He's using the pens to illustrate a point about how they're going to maneuver the ships. But what stood out to me was they weren't floating.
But they've got their anti-gravity shoes.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. Like Floyd does at the start of 2001. Fair enough. I did, because I was just assuming they had some anti-grav technology on the ship or whatever.
But then you've got the ultimate callback, back on Discovery, and we see Hal again, don't we?
Yeah.
We go into that pod, you see the all the bits which were in the first one, the space suits, you see the probe. The pod.
Because it's the pod bay. And
of course. So you see all that, and then you see Hal. What did you think about what we find out about Hal in the film?
I thought it was fine.
I preferred our explanation for it.
Yeah. And I don't think it undermines that.
No. And again, they're very different films. And I still think you can take what you want from 2001. There's no definite explanation as to why Hal's malfunctioning.
In 2001.
Yeah.
So in this film, he gets a full exoneration, doesn't he?
Yeah.
What is the explanation? Because this scene happens quite quickly. Dr. Chandra blames Floyd, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But then he kind of backtracks on that. What's his anger at Floyd?
So they find out that Hal was ordered to conceal from the Discovery's crew the fact that the mission was about the monolith, because that went and conflicted with his basic programming of being open and accurate about processing information, which started the malfunction. So I think that's kind of what they say in this.
It basically boils down to like a does not compute kind of situation.
Yeah, he's got two different things telling him to do completely different things.
Also, what that suggests, so I think if I was understanding the dialogue in that scene, they're saying that Dave and Frank Poole, is that the other guy, didn't know that they were going to the monolith?
Yeah.
What did they think they were doing then?
Yeah, they knew there was something going on, but they didn't know all of the reasoning. Because there's that mission, there's a video that happens after Hal shut down saying you've reached your orbit and this is why you're here, to investigate this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it does match up.
Just makes a bit of a weird character out of Dave and Frank.
Yeah.
I guess they're military men. They're just like, we got sent to Jupiter. Yes, sir, we'll go to Jupiter.
And with Dave as well, there's none of his backstory in 2001. But in this, he's suddenly got, what is it, a wife?
It's either it must be his wife, because I thought it might be his mother, but you don't call your mother by their first name. Well, you might if you're a star child.
Oh, you might.
Oh, no, you see his mother later.
Yeah, and then as the star child, he visits his wife on a TV screen, says something wonderful's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he also visits his mum, who's on her deathbed.
Yeah.
And brushes her hair. Has a lovely moment.
It's like Psycho.
Yeah. It's a little bit dodgy.
But he's brushing her hair like telekinetically. It's just a floating brush.
It's just a floating brush. Brilliant.
Yeah. And then does she die? Or?
I think she does, yeah. But she's really smiley. She's happy. She's gone in peace.
Yeah, I mean, so are the Joker's victims.
Oof. Oof.
They're all smiling.
Dave's a nice guy. He's the star child.
Yes, sort of. Sure.
So where are we then in 2010?
So Hal gets this full exoneration that I don't particularly love, but we've had a really cool spacewalk scene to make up for that. So I'm happy at this point in the film. Then they need to they get orders to go back to Earth because basically full scale war breaks out over this tension blockade.
It's all kicking off back
Central
home.
South America. Yeah, they get this ridiculous order where the Americans are now not allowed on Russian territory, which is the ship they're on, and Russians are not allowed on the Discovery, which is American territory, which I get what they're doing from like a sort of political standpoint, but it's like, obviously you would have worked out some sort of temporary treaty for the sake of this mission where you all sign a contract. It's very silly.
But because everyone's so angry back home, that's what they're left to have to do.
And everyone's very apologetic to them. Like everyone on Earth, just like Floyd's replacement, who's now running this mission and took his old job, is like, I'm very sorry about this. It's all very silly.
Yeah.
We wish it wasn't happening, and very critical about the US as well. I wish we weren't doing this. It all makes it quite a good Cold War movie, I thought.
Yeah.
They deal with the tensions between the two countries really well. It's interesting to put that geopolitical tension into space, into a confined space in outer space. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a really good device for that, isn't it?
A lot has happened while you have been asleep.
It is not our choice.
The problem in Central America is growing worse.
This looks as if you've detected the presence of chlorophyll.
The United States is threatening a naval blockade.
There's nothing but ice down there, so how the hell can there be any chlorophyll?
You know and I know that my country cannot allow a blockade.
How fast is it moving?
We are under instruction.
Listen, just because our governments are behaving like asses doesn't mean that we have to. We're supposed to be scientists, not politicians. How fast?
Dr. Floyd, I am also an officer of the Soviet Air Force.
How fast?
Then Floyd meets Dave, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Now, this was a bit... So this, I felt like they missed a trick here because it looks so beautiful in 2001 when they're going down the corridors and the way it's shot so symmetrically and everything. I mean, that's Kubrick. That's what he does. Hyams couldn't do that. And it's like this weird Dutch angle as he's going down the corridor. Do you remember that bit? And it's not lit as well.
In
when he's following
2010?
Dave. Right. So he's following Dave and it's like this Dutch angle from the bottom.
Yeah.
And he gets there into the pod bay and he keeps seeing Dave and he keeps... So Dave's just walking around normally as well. He's not... The gravity's not getting to him.
Yeah, well, he's a Star Child now.
Yeah, but then it's the same with Floyd. They're just sort of like pottering along. There's real sort of like...
Is he?
Yeah, so I don't know if that's... It just felt a bit strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you see that thing where Dave is old and then young and then old and then a baby.
Yeah, again, it was like too direct of a cut and paste from 2001, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that they should have found another way to make Dave seem like this space being, you know? Because it's similar to using the musical cues. It just calls attention to the similarities instead of making it its own thing.
Yeah, which is tricky, isn't it? Because you want to have those callbacks, but you want to do it in a slightly different way, maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that I didn't like about Dr. Sleep, is they've got so many scenes which are two actors trying to play the previous actors, like Jack Nicholson's character. Little bits like that sometimes I don't like as much.
Yeah.
But that's more of a personal preference.
No, I get what you mean. It's just like it doesn't meet the parameters of do your own thing, make your own thing of it, which is kind of the mission statement of this film. The pacing's very off. Like he's changing age really rapidly, like back and forth. Basically, in the space of like a sentence of dialogue, he's changed age. And again, it's just reminding you of how it worked in 2001, where the pacing was really deliberately slow and like that scene takes ages to play out, but it's a nice slow build up and really quite tense because of the breathing in some of it. And yeah, it just sort of didn't live up to it.
Yeah. And it kind of feels like towards like the third act, all goes at quite a pace. Everything's happening all at once. So you get all of that. And then basically they have to leave Jupiter's orbit within 2 days.
That's what Dave's come to tell him.
Yeah.
And I do just want to say, Dave is played by Keir Dullea, or however you say his name. Same guy who played him in 2001.
Yeah, and Hal's the same voice as well.
Same voice, but Dave looks like he hasn't aged a day. He looks great.
Yeah.
What's the gap? It's over 15 years between these two films, isn't it?
It's a long time, isn't it?
Closer to 20, I think. This is 1984. I can't remember when 2001 came out. But God looks great.
Yeah.
And yeah, they haven't got we do see him in his sort of young man age. And the aging makeup is good in this film as it was in 2001. But yeah, I just thought he looked great.
Yeah.
Surprised.
Aged very well.
Yeah, handsome man. But his warning is you got to leave 2 days. The plan is they're going to wait like 20 days or something and use the orbit to slingshot and then head back to Earth safely. They haven't really got the fuel to do anything else. But Dave's like, nope, I'm going to do my magic space child stuff to scare the life out of you.
Something wonderful is going to happen.
But you have to leave.
You have to leave right now.
It's really wonderful, but you do not want to be here when it happens.
Yeah. So they're basically told to leave straight away, and they figure out the only way to do that is they have to propel themselves using the Discovery.
Yeah.
And then they have to leave the Discovery behind.
Yeah, so there's enough fuel for both ships to use the slingshot effect and go home. There is not enough fuel for both ships to punch out of orbit early. But there is enough fuel for combining forces, and it was explained with floating pencils, and we're going to pop out of orbit. It just sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have to leave Hal behind, don't they?
Yeah.
So Dr. Chandra is going to talk to Hal about it, but he doesn't know whether to tell the truth or not.
They're still worried he might go homicidal again. And
very
do the exact same
dangerous.
thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of deliberation with it. There's a countdown as this is going on, and they're deliberating, and Hal's sort of like, why are we doing this? What's going on? I don't think this is right.
Yeah, Hal gets a bit intimidating. He was like, I'll still count down, but I really think you should tell me what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't say, I can't do this. He just says, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
But Dr. Chandra does tell him exactly what's going on, and he basically gets Hal to kind of volunteer to give himself up to the mission.
Hal completely understands. You've been honest with him. He's okay about that. He knows what's going on. And he says, yeah, okay, sure. I'll stay here.
Yeah. He's a military man in the end as well, isn't he? He's like, that's what's best for the mission.
It's best for the mission. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then he says, oh, will I dream?
Yeah, but weirdly, Dr. Chandra says, I don't know.
Yeah, so again, he's being honest, isn't he? He's finally
Right,
being
okay.
honest about
Yeah,
it.
fair
He's
enough.
saying like, honestly, I don't know. Don't know, mate. Hope
And
maybe.
also, I suppose the difference is Sal just got turned off temporarily. Hal is going to be exploded by a massive planet.
It is better for the mission if you leave. 1 minute to ignition. Thank you for telling me the truth.
You deserve it.
So what did you think of what was going on Jupiter? Because we finally get to the reason they have to leave, and it's there's like a black spot on Jupiter, and it's getting real big real fast. What did you think of this is like the final set piece of the film. What did you make of all of that?
So when I was watching it, I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I assumed that the monolith had gone into Jupiter, and then it was going to turn into something.
Yes, the monolith disappeared at this point,
Yeah.
hasn't it? They look over their shoulders and it ain't there anymore.
It's gone. So I didn't know what was going on really.
Yeah.
But yeah, something wonderful. was
Something
going to
wonderful,
happen.
yeah. So they look up close. I don't know if they use a probe or, I don't know, binoculars or whatever. And the black spot is made up of just like millions and millions and millions of monoliths. And are they dividing or like reproducing somehow?
Doing something very freaky.
Yeah, they're making more and more of them, and it's just turning into this swirling mass, and it's like devouring Jupiter. I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, it did look cool.
I loved all this. It's like a black spot that's just basically consuming all of it until eventually it does literally, I guess it makes it go a bit like a supernova, like
Yeah.
it collapses under its own gravity.
I imagined it like Sunshine, where they sort of reignite the sun. So it's kind of that happening.
Yeah,
And then turns out that's what happens.
that is what happens, yeah.
They turn Jupiter into the sun,
It's pretty bonkers.
which is kind of, again, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen in Wandering Earth.
Yes. Oh,
But-
yeah.
yeah.
Was that around Jupiter? Were they stuck around Jupiter there? One of the gas giants, wasn't it?
One of the big gas giants.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But that's literally what happens. The monoliths turn Jupiter into a new sun for the purpose of cultivating life on Europa. So we've
Yeah.
already had this hint that there might be life on Europa. Popular spot for life in outer space, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
we
we know-
love Europa.
Yeah, and we know Arthur C. Clarke. Because we talked about that there was some scientific evidence to suggest that it was like the best place in the solar system apart from us to host life, maybe.
Yeah.
I wonder how long that's been known in the scientific community, because Arthur C. Clarke is very dialed into all of that. He knows his scientific stuff. So I wonder if that was a theory that was around when he was writing this book, and that's why he chose it for. But that would suggest that he was even thinking that when writing 2001, right?
Yeah, he can see into the future. He knows these things.
Yeah.
Never doubt Arthur C. Clarke.
Or scientists have known that Europa might be a spot for life for like a long time.
Yeah, he would know if people knew.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy.
He's a smart guy. He knows almost as much about science as we do, James.
Almost. So Hal then starts talking to Dave.
I found this really weirdly sweet.
Yeah, they're like best mates now.
Yeah.
It's like all of that anguish from their previous encounter is gone.
Yeah. Well, Dave's transcended.
He's the
and,
Star Child.
Yeah, he's evolved beyond mere mortal worries about a homicidal robot that tried to kill you.
Yeah, he's got special powers now. He can go visit his mum, brush her hair, come back,
Yeah.
talk to Hal.
And also, Hal's forgotten it all.
Yeah, he's lost all his memory, hasn't
Dr.
he?
Chandra's wiped all that out to reduce any risk of him doing it again. Yeah, so from Hal's point of view, they're picking up the relationship, early Jupiter 1 mission relationship. We're playing chess. We're all getting along great.
Yeah.
And Dave's happy to go along with that because he's like a Buddha. And what's their conversation? They're basically just like, oh, we're gonna. It's just you and me now. We're just gonna tour the
he said,
universe,
"That's
go on
all
a
right."
wonderful journey. Yeah,
Lovely. So they're
Yeah.
going to go off on their star mission.
yeah,
But Hal does send one last message, doesn't he?
yeah.
So that message reads, all these worlds are yours except Europa. Attempt no landing there. And then that was where the message ended in the books. But then Peter Hyams added in, use them together, use them in peace.
Me.
Just to make it extra. The Cold War is bad. We're uniting together and we're going to have peace now.
Yes, so it's to add that more like Cold War element to the plot.
Yeah,
I
and I
guess.
think that's it's like it's nice.
Yeah, it fits it nicely.
Yeah.
I like the original message though. It's much more ominous.
Yeah.
All these words are yours, except Europa.
You can't have that one.
And that's why it's frustrating that there are no further films. And I guess I just need to read the rest of the books.
The books do, from what I've read, I have had a sneaky read about plots and stuff.
Well, obviously they go to Europa, right?
Obviously
they attempt a landing there.
I mean, yes, they do from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
But so when you're looking from Earth at this point, there's 2 suns.
Yeah.
So that's nice, isn't it?
It's weird.
Really nice and bright.
Yeah. Also, it's like that'd be awful, right? Because now at night time on Earth, there's a star in the sky that's like almost as bright as the daytime sun. That's like a nightmare world. There's no nighttime.
Extra suntan lotion.
Yeah, and like everyone's going to go completely insane because you can't get any sleep, and we all live in a world where you've got to like blacken out your windows.
But it's supposed to be optimistic.
It is a very optimistic
The world is united,
ending.
and everyone's got a constant reminder not to have a war because there's another sun in the
Yes, yeah.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, it's a moralistic ending.
Something wonderful happened.
Yeah.
And then you see Europa, you see a big monolith, you know there's going to be life there, but we're not going to see it. We're not allowed.
Yeah. So it makes explicit, and this is what I meant about it making everything explicit. It's making explicit the stuff where the monolith is more mysterious in the first film. It's heavily implied in the apes scene that it's having some sort of evolutionary effect, but then it doesn't have the same effect on the moon, and Dave's experience with it at the end of the film doesn't explicitly imply that he's going through some evolutionary process. It's just psychedelic, right? Yeah. This film is very clear about it. He's become a super being. He can travel across the solar system, and they're cultivating new life very explicitly on Europa.
And it is super beings which are giving this life to other planets.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It still doesn't go any further with what is the monolith. Is it the being? Is it a device of the beings? Well, I guess those are the only 2 options.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Yeah. I think it's the latter. But it doesn't it lets there be mystery to the monolith. It's still this strange thing with its mathematically perfect dimensions. And yeah, it is cool. It's still a good depiction of the monolith.
Cool. And I like this film. It's straight down the line. If it was any other sci-fi film and didn't have any connection to 2001, then people probably think it's just all right. It's just good.
Yeah.
But because it's got all of that added weight to it from 2001, which is such a masterpiece, I think it's a bit downplayed.
I think so. I think that's fair. Yeah. Stanley Kubrick is not a franchise maker. He was an artist trying to create solo works of art. They don't lend. I don't think there's nothing wrong with sequels inherently, in my opinion, but he wasn't making films for the purpose of people to make more films following the storylines.
Although our next director has done sequels as well as film, like standalone films.
Lovely segue. Let's get on to Interstellar.
We must confront the reality that nothing in our solar system can help us.
Now you need to tell me what your plan is to save the world.
We're not meant to save the world. We're meant to leave it. And this is the mission we were trained for.
I've got kids, Professor.
Get out there and save them.
So, Interstellar, 2014. I remember it well. It was a good year.
You?
I don't know exactly what I was doing, but it was a good year. Interstellar was out.
Did you go and see this at the cinema?
I didn't see it at the cinema, I'm afraid to say. I couldn't afford the ticket price.
Right, so you weren't doing great in 2014 then?
I was having a lovely time, but I couldn't afford to go to the cinema.
No, that sounds fun. I didn't see it at the cinema either, and I'm a bit gutted.
Yeah, because it was shot. Bits of it was shot in IMAX as well.
Yeah, so this was Christopher Nolan's thing.
He loved
2014,
IMAX.
and still, I guess, isn't it? I didn't like it very much in this film. I love IMAX. I love when a film's shot in IMAX if I can go and see it at the IMAX, because it really is amazing when it fills up that screen. But in this, obviously, I'm watching it on my TV at home, and it just keeps cutting back and forth. I found it really
jarring,
annoying,
isn't it?
Really jarring, yeah.
I only noticed it a few times, but then I did, and I was kind of like, what's going on? And then I assumed it was just a narrative device, but knowing that it was shot on IMAX.
No, I really don't think it's a narrative
Yeah,
device.
it's
because there's points in this movie where it'll just cut into it for like literally one shot, and then it cuts back out and it's letterboxed again on a TV. I don't see any, because like the two Dark Knight films both used it, and I think the Dark Knight, we watched that at uni. Did you come to the IMAX for that?
I was sick on that day. I was very annoyed.
Oh, what, you didn't come?
No, I didn't go.
Oh, mate.
I watched it at home on my tiny TV. I was very gutted.
I think that might have been the first film I saw at the IMAX.
Was it amazing?
Yeah, really, really good. What they do in that is it's like a sequence is in IMAX. So it's only jarring when it snaps in and snaps out of that sequence. And it's got a real element of spectacle to it, because it's like the scene where Batman's on the rooftops kind of overlooking the city. That's an IMAX scene. The opening scene, I think, is IMAX. You know, it's got this sense of grandeur to it, and it looks amazing. And I would love to watch a whole film in IMAX. It'd be absolutely great. I think it would cost a fortune. It's really expensive.
Ridiculous amount. Make a 90-minute film.
Yeah, for fuck's sake, Christopher Nolan, make a 90-minute film. So it looked great. I loved it. But yeah, I found it really jarring. Because also, like, there's absolutely no benefit to shooting on IMAX when I'm watching it on my shitty little 32-inch telly.
Yeah, unless you can afford an IMAX screen at home, which I don't think anyone can fit.
And everything on like Netflix is shot in IMAX dimensions, isn't it? It's only like cinema films that still do proper widescreen that has to be letterboxed.
I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, like if you watch
they're
Netflix,
all just like, they fit the whole scene.
It fills the screen, yeah. Nothing's letterboxed on Netflix. So I don't know. It's fine. I'm not going to criticizing him for making his film look nice.
Anyway, it looks very nice.
It does look amazing. Yeah.
So again, he got a proper scientist, someone who knows what they're talking about, to sort of like help him through the process of making the film. So there's a guy called Dr. Kip Thorne. Do you know anything about this guy?
No, not really. But I remember it when the film was. I really disliked it, like in the marketing of this film, because like they really touted it, like, oh, we got scientists, everything's really scientifically accurate, which is good. I just found it like really, they were really like ramming it down people's throats in the marketing from what I remember of 2014. And do you know what it reminded me of? The Human Centipede, 100% medically accurate. Do you know, it's just like, I don't care. It's a film about people getting their mouths strapped to someone's ass. Like, I'm not worrying about the science behind it.
If it can actually happen.
Yeah, let's get on with it. Like, I don't know. And I think a vast section of the target audience for Interstellar is not like, well, what's the scientific accuracy of the worm? I
do find it fascinating, though, the fact they've got this guy in. And apparently he had two guidelines that he wanted to follow. So he said, nothing in the film would violate established physical laws, and that all the wild speculations would spring from science and not from the creative mind of a screenwriter.
And that's a bit of a dig.
Yeah.
What did Chris Nolan make of that?
So I think they had a few disagreements about certain things. Well, it says on IMDb at one point, Thorne spent 2 weeks talking Nolan out of an idea about traveling faster than light.
Right.
So we're always talking about faster than light, aren't we?
Yeah.
So Kip Thorne was like, no, we're not doing that. You can't do it. It's not happening.
Oh, bore off, Kip Thorne.
But yeah, so they don't have that in this. But they do have the method of space travel in this is very similar to Contact.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, when they're up there.
Yeah. And Carl Sagan got the idea for the travel in Contact from Kip Thorne's work.
Oh, okay.
So that's quite a nice connection there.
All right, he's getting his movie dollars finally after.
It's like, I did that.
Yeah,
I proved that.
Furious about Contact, wasn't he?
So in this one, it's a post-apocalyptic Earth.
Yeah. Or pre-apocalyptic.
Yeah. What did you think about all that stuff?
It was cool. Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice, like, it kind of like mashes up time periods a little bit, because it feels a little bit 1920s almost.
Yeah.
They have like, everyone's got like a pickup truck. They're modern looking pickup trucks, but it could easily sort of slot into like a 1920s Great Depression, Hooverville kind of vibe.
That's really weird that you say that.
Why?
So have you heard about the Dust Bowl period in America?
Yeah, that's Hooverville period.
Yeah. So it's it was in the 1930s. There was like a severe drought and a failure to sort of apply dry land farming methods, all this kind of stuff, because of this big dust storms that kept damaging the ecology and the agriculture.
Was that a man-made thing then? The dust bowls. I always thought that was just like an accident. But was that was an agricultural misstep?
I think it was just something that happened.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the ins and outs of it. But if you want to find out about the ins and outs of it, there's a film by Ken Burns called The Dust Bowl.
Oh, I will definitely
2012. And apparently that film is what inspired Christopher Nolan for this setting.
Oh, great.
And
great.
do you know the interviews with the older people at the start?
Yeah,
saying,
it's got like a docudrama setup.
Yeah,
which is a bit strange.
So those are real interviews taken from that film. About
really?
Yeah, about they're talking about the Dust Bowl and this thing that happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Apart from Ellen Burstyn, of course.
Apart from that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's cool. It's a weird effect though, isn't it? Because you only see it at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
It sort of works with the dilating, repeating timeline element of the film that they come back to it and they kind of end on that. But
at the end, they're basically on monoliths. Did you notice that?
Yes. Oh, right. Yeah. In the reconstructed cabin.
Yeah.
Ah, cool.
So that's quite a nice little callback to 2001.
Well,
Callback central.
There's loads of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think on first viewing, those docudrama bits feel a bit weird because it's the introduction to the film and then it stops after 15 minutes and they don't do it anymore.
It does seem a bit peculiar because it's all out of sync as well because that's a future timeline.
Yeah, I think that's readable on first viewing, isn't it?
But it's setting up this idea of what the world's like. It's very dusty.
It's dusty, yeah. It's dust everywhere.
Dust again. So much dust in these films.
I'm sorry, I'm completely blown away by that those are real interviews.
Yeah.
Because I'm remembering all the quotes of like the people saying, oh, we've got to set our cutlery upside down and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that obviously happened.
And that was a real thing. Wow.
Well, my dad was a farmer. Like everybody else back then. Of course, he didn't start that way. We had died. The blight came and we had to burn it. And we still had corn. We had acres of corn. But mostly we had dust.
So Coop, played by Matthew McConaughey. We're back on a Matthew McConaughey goes to space film.
Yeah, reconnaissance.
Yeah, we are right in the reconnaissance. This was like heralding the reconnaissance, wasn't it? Or this is a few years after True Detective.
Yeah.
When he really
Dallas Buyers Club.
Oh, yeah. Did he win an Oscar for that or nominated?
I think he might have done,
Yeah, he's good in that. He's very good in True Detective. He plays Coop, who used to be a pilot. We just get snippets of that. What did you think of the way that his past career was represented and his kind of attitudes towards the past in general, but also like everything about the past that he no longer has?
I thought it was done really well. So when you see him, he's not happy with his lot in life. So he's working as a farmer, but he had this career as a pilot, like you said, which we don't have too much of a clue into at the start, except he starts doing stuff which is very out of character given where he's living and what he's doing. So he like gets a drone and reprograms a drone just out of nowhere when he's driving around one day. He talks about science in a very overly scientific way. He talks about Murphy's Law. He talks about lots of different things and how to prove stuff. And he talks to his daughter quite a bit about this.
Yeah, he won't accept that there's a ghost in his daughter's bedroom and he gets a bit chastised by their grandfather. Then he's like, all right, fair enough. If there's a ghost, then let's prove it scientifically.
Yeah, so he's got this scientific background to him. But he seems like a man out of time. He keeps referring, there's one line where he refers to how the Earth is being treated now. He says something like, we were meant to be explorers and pioneers, and now we're just caretakers.
Yeah.
We're just stuck here, just trying to prolong our life on Earth.
And caretaker's the word used by the headmaster at the school, which he's really keen for his son to go into some sort of engineering field and have a bit of a similar career to what he had before the blight, they call it, happened to all the crops. And the headmaster says, oh, look, Coop, we're a caretaker generation. Your son's going to be a farmer. We're all farmers. You just need to sort of deal with it.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's not good enough for my kid. It's also this, in that scene as well, they're talking about Murph. Murph's got her hands on his old textbook, which talks about like the Apollo landings. I thought that was really cool. That's like not contraband, but that's like she's not allowed to have that in school because they're currently teaching the Apollo landings as propaganda. So the Stanley Kubrick conspiracy is played as, well, what's it played as? How do you think that's constructed in the film? Like what do you think, how do you think that came about in that universe?
Well, they're trying to keep everyone grounded, aren't they? But their direct explanation for it is that they wanted to bankrupt the Soviet Union, and that's the reason they did it. They didn't do it for any sort of like pioneering reasons or to advance technology. They're trying to keep their heads out of the clouds.
Yeah.
So they don't want them thinking about technology and things like that. It's not an era of that kind of stuff. But then Coop makes a good point. He says, well, if this was an era of technology, there would have been an MRI machine, and that would have saved my wife.
Yeah. So he's got these like, there's two nice streams of romanticizing the pre-Blight world where there was a lot more use of technology and space flight and Earth flight. It's the one hand where like it used to be his career, it used to be his life, and also he's lost his wife due to a lack of available technology and no focus on that kind of development in this world. So it's a nice little, it's quite a tight way of just summing up this character. You know where he stands, which is really important because he goes on to make a truly horrible, unpleasant choice that I really, this time watching it, I thought it was disgusting, to be honest, what he does.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, isn't it?
I was really outraged by the choices that Coop makes.
Yeah, but he's trying to save the world. He's trying to preserve it for his kids.
So Coop is selected for a mission to go to space, and Michael Caine explains it to him that they're going to go to...
We should clarify. So we have a friend who may or may not have interviewed Michael Caine. And during that, Michael Caine referred to the place where Matthew McConaughey goes as Interstellar World.
In what voice? That's not the voice.
Matthew McConaughey goes to Interstellar World.
I go to Interstellar World.
So Matthew McConaughey goes to Interstellar World in this bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they recruit him to the job, and he kind of wrestles with it. And there's an element of, because of the ghost, there's a sense of like, oh, it was fate that I came here, and he accepts the mission. But he's leaving his family. He's leaving his two young children, and he doesn't know. He knows there's going to be some time dilation. He knows it's going to be a very long trip, regardless of any weird timey-wimey. But then there is that in the mix as well. He's going through a black hole, or he's going to a black hole. And he still decides to leave his children behind. He's got to say goodbye to Murph. And his son is like 15, and he deals with it incredibly well.
He's just like, okay, Dad.
Yeah, I'll look after the farm.
So apparently they cut quite a lot of that.
A lot of what?
Timothée Chalamet's scene.
Is that Timothée Chalamet?
Yeah.
I didn't really know who Timothy. I know that everyone was talking about him last year.
That's him. He's going to be in
From
June.
From
June. So now you know.
Ah, cool. And it's he turns into Casey Affleck.
Yeah. But yeah, so they cut a lot. I don't know how much of the scene, but apparently when Timothy was watching it, he was crying because he was like quite sad they cut so much of him from the film in those big scenes.
Oh, right. So they make him look like a bit of a dope.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which works in the context of the film. He takes it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then it kind of goes badly from later. But Murph, he has to he basically leaves on bad terms with Murph. And that was the scene where I just couldn't deal with like what Coop was doing. Because, and my whole point about getting to this was fundamentally the mission was happening without Coop. Michael Caine was all set to send someone else to Interstellar World. And and that was fine. That was the plan. That was all set to go. And Coop is just like, well, I don't like being a farmer, so send me. No, but it is Michael Caine's idea, but he's so into it. He's like, yeah, sure, love it. I want to go to space. That sounds fun.
But that's his character. That's like he's got this need to...
Yeah, but his character's a dick. Like, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I really, really disliked him a lot more this time.
And he completely changes his mind later on.
Yes, it's a hubris story. It's fine. It works. I think it is it's all deliberate, and you're supposed to feel that way because the ending wouldn't really work unless.
Yeah. But all of that makes it justified how upset Murph is.
Yeah.
And what she goes on to do as well.
Yeah.
But so the way they depict NASA as well, I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's like an underground organization now.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about NASA.
Yeah, it adds to that romantic idea of NASA that Coop was holding on to when he's arguing about the moon landings being real or not. And now they're like this noble band of scientists all working underground to save the entire human race. It's very like pro NASA, isn't it? Yeah.
I heard they shut you down, sir, for refusing to drop bombs from the stratosphere on the starving people.
Well, when they realized that killing other people was not a long-term solution, then they needed us back in secret.
Why secret?
Because public opinion wouldn't allow spending on space exploration.
They have two plans to save the human race. So one of them is to go into this black hole, which has appeared. Wormhole.
So this really tripped me up, actually, because there is a wormhole and then there is a black hole, and those are two different things, but I think the wormhole pops them out from the black hole on the other side. Is that right?
Maybe.
The wormhole has appeared next to Saturn, and then there's a black hole on the other side of it. Gargantua, yeah.
I only know that because I like the way they explain it, because they explain it in the same way they do in Event Horizon. They've got the two dots.
Oh, yeah.
The actual traveling through the black hole / wormhole. They've got the two dots on the paper. They put them together, put a pencil through it, and then that's how you travel from two spots instantaneously.
I found that quite condescending.
I needed it. I really needed it.
Really? I don't know if it's just because... I don't know.
You've seen it already.
I've seen it already. I've seen Event Horizon. I've seen a lot of sci-fi films.
Would you have preferred Woody Woodpecker?
Yeah,
to come on, like in Destination Moon.
Genuinely, yes.
That would have been a nice touch. Again, thinking about Destination Moon, it's got parallels with that as well, because in Destination Moon, they have to do the rocket, they have to do the launch secretly before the government find out.
Yeah.
Except this is secret as well, but the government are paying for it, but they've only got limited funds to give them.
And the government can't publicise it because everyone's a farmer, they're a caretaker generation, they can't be spending billions of dollars or whatever they've spent on it's a bit pie in the sky kind of hopeful space mission.
And going back to the two things that they're hoping to do. So one of them is to go into this black hole / wormhole, whichever it is, and then find another planet, because they've already sent probes in there and they know there are planets that could potentially have life or could potentially house life, where they can send the human race, they can live there happily ever after. So that's one of the things. The other thing, as a backup for Plan B, they call it, is an ark again.
Yeah.
They've got loads of embryos ready to go, so they can just repopulate a planet. Yeah,
it's a Wandering Earth scenario.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Both plans in tandem.
Exactly.
Which makes sense. It makes sense that you're pouring so much effort into this project. You need backup options, and they need to be sensible.
Yeah.
And also it ties in. There's this constant the theme of gravity and all the different types of gravity and the way gravity is affecting us. The Ark ship is caused by their difficulty with gravity. They can't blast off an ark full of all the people on Earth because they can't break free of Earth's gravity. It's too heavy.
Yeah.
But they can send hundreds of thousands of embryos, and it's very easy to do that.
And there's no point in putting rocket blasters on the Earth, like in Wandering Earth, because they've already got loads of dust, so...
Yeah. And also, that plan's insane.
That plan is insane.
So they go to Saturn. This is one of the first big callbacks to 2001, because in the book of 2001, it's Saturn, not Jupiter. I don't know why Kubrick made the distinction.
Is that a visual effects thing?
Right. Oh, yeah, maybe. I think we might have talked about this when we looked at 2001. They couldn't do the rings.
Yeah, I think that was it,
Or the rings looked too silly to an audience or something like that if you did them realistically. Yeah, that was it. But Arthur C. Clarke made it Saturn. So actually, that thing about Europa, Arthur C. Clarke couldn't have chosen Europa as the moon that would support life because he was writing about Saturn. But yeah, so they go to Saturn and the wormhole is orbiting it. And I thought it was very much like the monolith in that it is this mysterious, visually beautiful, alien in its strangeness object that they're all obsessed with. Yeah, it's spherical. They make too much of a fuss about it being spherical. It's like...
The science. Think about the science.
Yeah, we get it. It can be a sphere.
Eventually, what happens is they go into this wormhole, and then you've got all these lovely set pieces of the different planets. What did you think about these set pieces? And did you have any favourites?
I mean, the water world is, I think, the best bit. It's the first one they go to. I was unclear on if the entire planet was water. Like Anne Hathaway says, it's all just water. But like they've just popped in.
Just shallow water.
Yeah, and they don't know that. They've only just looked at like a few miles of it. But whatever.
But they think there's mountains.
Yeah, and it's not. It's a big tidal wave.
It's a big fuck off wave.
It's cool. It's very like tense and scary.
Yeah. But the best thing about that as well is the time thing.
Yes.
Because it's so close to the wormhole, black hole.
What's going on? Yeah, what's going on in this solar system? Are all 3 planets orbiting Gargantua, the black hole, and there's no sun? Because he does mention a neutron star at some point. I can go closer to that neutron star.
I think there must be a sun somewhere.
But at least one of the planets is orbiting the black hole. You can't orbit a black hole and also orbit a sun. And it's one system, 3 planets, right? So all 3 planets must be orbiting the same whatever. So I assume they're orbiting Gargantua, but then where do they get the heat and light?
Who knows? And the time differentiation. So what do they say? It's like every second.
Every hour. Will be 7 years.
And a second's a day.
Wow. Whatever the maths on that is.
Whatever the maths is. But that was done so well as well, because the premise of that is terrifying. Like the longer you're there, the more years you're losing.
Yeah.
And the more, especially for Matthew McConaughey's character, because he's going to lose that time with his family.
Yeah, and again,
but you don't like him anyway.
Again, he kind of like goes into it, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it."
Yeah, he's on the mission now. He's a mission man.
He's enjoying it.
Yeah,
though. He's into it.
So he goes down. They go down with the team, and bad shit happens.
Yeah, they get wiped out by one of these massive waves, and Anne Hathaway, Brand, is like, "No, I can do it. Just give me another minute."
Yeah, she fucks it all up.
Yeah.
Cooper's not happy about that at all.
No.
Because he's lost decades.
23 years.
Yeah.
Right?
And then there's another guy who's up on the space station at the time.
So messed up.
And he thinks,
Romilly.
2 years is fine because I can do a lot of work on the wormhole and sort of study that.
Yeah.
But no, they'd gone for 23 years.
There's a nice bit of horror to that scene, isn't there? Just the loneliness of it and the state of him when they get back. And Brand asks him, "Why didn't you just go into cryo sleep?" And he was like, "Oh, I gave up on believing you were coming back," which means that he woke himself up to die, and then 23 years later, his colleagues showed up.
Yeah,
that is so grim.
It is really grim. Speaking of grim, the guy from Grimm is in this.
What's Grimm?
It's a TV show about the Grimm fairy tales.
Oh, yeah. It's like a detective show.
Yeah, and the detective is the character who dies on the water world.
Yes, of course he is.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I was trying to figure out where I knew him from.
That's him. He's got a beard. He's got a beard in this.
Yeah, Doyle.
Yeah.
I was trying to do the right thing.
Can you tell that to Doyle? Case almost down.
45 to an hour.
Yeah. The stuff of life, huh? What's this gonna cost us, Brand?
A lot. Decades.
What was your favourite? That was my favourite. What was your favourite? There's 3 worlds, but we only go to 2.
Yeah. Well, obviously I loved Matt Damon's one. Although Matt Damon's one, so I haven't seen The Martian.
Okay, that's cool. We're going to watch that soon.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I didn't watch The Martian is because I'd seen Interstellar.
Uh-huh.
And in Interstellar, Matt Damon is on a planet stranded on his own. And I kind of considered this to be similar to the premise of The Martian. I'm sure The Martian is really good.
Yeah, you're really going to enjoy The Martian.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And he's a very different character.
Yeah. So the ice world.
But also, when you see him, when I saw him, I've seen this film maybe twice, at least once before.
Yeah.
And I still, as soon as he wakes up, I'm like, oh, right, Matt Damon's in this.
Dr. Mann.
Yeah, Dr. Mann.
So Matt Damon's not a very nice guy living on the ice world.
Yeah, so he's like he's the leader of the 12 who went out.
Yeah, you never see a picture of him before.
Do you not?
They show all of the other astronauts, and they show one astronaut in particular who I assumed would be Man.
Yeah,
but no, there's a big reveal. Oh my God, it's Matt Damon.
Yeah, it was a bit of a marketing secret, wasn't it? I'm not sure why. Like, I get that he is a big name, and he was a huge name in 2014, but it's not like why keep that secret? People are going to, American audiences just cheering when it's Matt Damon. It's the guy from the thing. I don't know, like, who cares, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was quite nice to see him.
I suppose
it's nice to see Matt Damon on TV.
Yeah, and he's very good in it.
Yeah.
I suppose there's an element of, like, if you know Matt Damon's in the cast list, then you are just waiting for Matt Damon to show up on screen.
And then there's the build up to when you see Dr. Mann.
Dr. Mann. He was the best of us. Man was the best of us.
He was not.
And he wasn't. Man was bad.
Very bad.
The duality of man.
Yes.
The duality of Dr. Man.
And there's man versus machine, because he gets rid of
man versus machine.
Yeah.
Interstellar, man versus machine.
Double N.
Brackets. The duality of man. Close brackets.
That was the official title.
Yeah. Man's world's cool. It's the ice planet.
Yeah. It's a man's world.
It's a man's world. Oh, it's so much. It's so clever. The writing is so clever, James. Two people it took to write this. It's so good.
Oh, I do love it though.
Yeah.
So he basically fucks them all over, doesn't he? That's
yeah.
happens.
He's gone psycho.
Yeah.
He's gone.
He just
cabin
he's
fever,
so happy to see people. He's got tears in his eyes when he's taken out of cryosleep.
And yet he will kill them all.
Yeah. And yet he just wants to fuck off.
Yeah.
And just get back on the ship.
Yeah. So that builds us up to what I thought on this rewatch was the best bit of the film. And it's not the bit that stuck in my mind the first time I see it. So it's the docking scene. So they get in like basically a car chase with Man, Dr. Man, back up to the Endurance, which is the name of their ship.
Yeah.
He fails to dock and is killed. He's like desperately trying to manually dock, and it's not going to work, and he won't listen to any warnings and gets destroyed. The scene where they then dock, because the explosion causes the ship to start spinning way faster than it should, right?
Yeah.
And then they have to dock with it. It's so good. The music in this film is phenomenal. Is it Hans Zimmer?
Yep.
So, I mean, Hans Zimmer, a little bit overused.
But he's always great.
But he's good at what he does.
So apparently
good.
Christopher Nolan said to him, I want this to be different music-wise to other space films.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought you were going to say to your other scores, which it is not.
But because one bit, in terms of the music, one bit which really stood out is the water world, where apparently, so it's 60 beats per minute.
Oh, he's done this again.
In that, deliberately. And that's to
Why?
emphasize
because
the
of
time.
Right.
So he's done little things like that. So it's like, oh, this is really clever. But
He did that. Yeah, they do that because Inception's the slowed down La Vie en Rose, isn't it? The boom, I think, is just the normal trumpets, I guess, from La Vie en Rose.
But yeah, he like Hans Zimmer's great.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine. He's fine. I love to hear him in every movie. So, but yeah, we got this amazing docking scene. So they line it up and they've got to match the spin, which means they're going to be hit with G-forces. Coop's blacking out. Brand blacks out immediately. She's no NASA test pilot. She can't hack it. I just loved it. It was just amazing. What did you think of that bit?
It's so good. And then what does Coop say? He says,
"Come on, Tars."
He says a bit more than that in this particular scene.
Right.
He says, what does he say? He said, it's Case says, Case, who's the other robot.
Love them both.
We'll
so
talk
much.
about that in a second because I really want to talk about those guys. So Case says it's not possible, and then Coop replies, "No, it's necessary." And that's a kind of like failure is not an option line, isn't it?
Yeah, but not as good, is it?
Not as good.
No, it's necessary.
It's necessary. But yeah, then he manages to do it.
He does it, and they dock, and it's like I think it's the most intense part of the film.
It is really intense. 'Cause it's just spinning out of control. And also, did you notice the space station looks a bit like a clock?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So clever, the writing.
It's great.
I'm half being sarcastic and I'm half sincere. I do think that's clever.
I can tell.
I do like that. The
But
clock.
again, it's like, and apparently there's lots of bits which look like clocks in there if you look out for it.
Yeah.
Like inside the space station, there's lots of circular objects with bits that look like time.
I just think, what do you think of Chris Nolan in general? Because I think he overdoes stuff like that.
Oh, I like him.
The reason I didn't see this in the cinema is that the film by him immediately before this is The Dark Knight Rises, which I saw twice in the cinema because I had bought the second round of tickets before. I'd arranged with two different people to see it at the cinema, and I just did both. Obviously, if I had seen it, I would not have booked to see it again in the cinema because I think it's absolute garbage. I thought that film was so bad.
It's not that bad.
It's bad. It retroactively made me hate all the other Christopher Nolan films that I'd previously really enjoyed.
Oh wow, that's had a massive impact on you.
Well, after I saw that, I rewatched The Dark Knight and I rewatched Inception. I was like, these films are shit. Like everything I hate about The Dark Knight Rises is in this, and I hated it all so much that when Interstellar came out, I was like, no way am I paying money to see that at the cinema. I hate this guy. Which is why I really regret it, because I think this film's amazing. For the record, I think this film is very good.
I think he's kind of does a Shyamalan kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's known for doing stuff with a little tweak. There's a little something about it which makes it different.
People think he's clever.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's not clever, but now he's got to write films that are quote unquote clever films.
He's got a very good understanding of films and how they work.
Yeah.
And because I mean, his first film was Memento.
Yeah, so like The Sixth Sense, it's exactly the same problem. It's like you're the guy who made Memento, you're the guy who does clever stuff with time or whatever in your films. It's not a twist, it's a twist on the format.
And I mean, because Memento is still like a narrative film and it follows a plot structure, but it's just all out of order.
Yeah.
And it still plays like a film if you rejig it. And but I can see what you mean. He's known for these things, and I can see why you would bring all of that to his other work.
He won me back with this film.
Good.
And
great.
I do like him, and I think The Dark Knight Rises. I haven't seen Dunkirk, and I'm looking forward to the new one. But I think The Dark Knight Rises is just like a blip in his career. I do think that the editing in The Dark Knight Rises is awful. And it just ruins all the pacing. And that's what I didn't like about Inception and The Dark Knight when I rewatched them. There's bad editing. The editing in Interstellar is so good.
Really good.
The middle chunk. So as soon as Jessica Chastain is introduced as Murph, there's like probably a solid hour in the middle where it's cutting back and forth really steadily and really evenly between her and Coop. But it's done in a way that like accelerates the film constantly. It's amazing. It's so good. The pacing in that middle bit.
Yeah, and it's so clever as well, the cutting back and everything that's happening on Earth is poignant to what's happening in Interstellar world at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, and I love it. Yeah, it's very, very good.
We should talk about Tars.
Yes.
Bloody Tars.
Teddy.
Yeah, Teddy.
Yeah, he's like Teddy in
he's a bit
AI.
like Teddy.
And who did we talk about recently that was another Teddy-like companion? Gertie? Is that his name?
Yeah, lots of Gertie comparisons.
We see a lot of these just loyal robot companions, don't we?
Yeah.
I like them. I always like them. They're good characters.
Tars is the most human-sounding one, though.
Yes, fair.
Of these kind of robots we've seen, these artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And it's got lots of callbacks to HAL, obviously.
Yep.
Looks a bit like a monolith. We've talked about this previously.
Yep.
And the fact that the honesty setting can be changed. I thought that was really good. And that kind of gets rid of the HAL problem, which we found out about in 2010. because in 2010, can't be honest with Dave and Frank, whereas his rating can be changed, and that affects how he's relating to people in this film. So Tars has that ability.
Yeah, he's got a 90% honesty setting because being 100% honest with human beings is risky or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then Coop ups it to 95 at the end, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a humour setting
He's
as
got
well.
a humour setting. He's got some wacky jokes.
He makes great jokes about 2001. He says, I might blast you out the airlock.
Yeah. Slaves for my robot colony.
Yeah.
I think the reason I like these characters so much is they've got, so Gertie and Teddy and Tars and Case, they've got such capacity to be terrifying. And Hal in 2001 set a precedent for potentially terrifying robot companions. And when they don't play out like that, and actually their motivation all along was just to help you or be your friend in Teddy's case, or just hang out, I think, in Gertie's case.
Yeah.
I like that twist on it. And Tars is the same. Tars looks terrifying because he's a monolith when stationary, but he can also turn into like this exponentially spinning chainsaw monster.
Yeah.
If necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
With all his little spindly ghost in the shell.
And the first time you see him as well,
hands.
he's interrogating.
Yes.
Coop.
He's muscle. Yeah.
He was a Marine or something.
I was
Or
a bit
used by
confused
the
by that.
Marines.
Yeah, I think he was just like Marine equipment. But my first take on that was that they were somehow, they'd like used, he was the mind of a Marine because he's got such a human voice, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Like, oh, is this what they've done with the former Marine Corps? They've uploaded them into slabs of metal and put them to work.
I mean, that makes it a bit more freaky if you think about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's what we're supposed to think.
Yeah.
I think I just misread.
He's just our friend. He's our buddy.
He's great, and Case is great as well.
And Case is very different.
Yeah.
And there's a moment when Coop's flying to the planet with Case, and he says, "You don't say much, do you?" And he says, "No, Tars does enough talking for the both of us."
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very nice sort of differentiation between the two different AI.
I love the fact they're both fully realized characters and members of the crew. As in, when you're just writing this film, you can write them as human characters who are, we're sending up to Marines with you to keep you safe and, you know, help with running the ship and all of that. And you can just script it that way, and then, you know, then you just add the layer of actually they're robots. And they're performed like you would perform a Marine character. It's great.
Yeah.
I think Case isn't as memorable. I forgot Case existed, to be honest, when I was rewatching it.
Yeah, because I remember you shouted, "Tars!
Come on, Tars!"
But it's Case who saves them in the water thing.
In the water thing,
world.
but when they're spinning and trying to dock, Tars is in control of the docking mechanism.
Yeah.
So he's got his head pinned to the side because of the G's. He's like, "Come on, Tars!
Come on, Tars!" Come on, Tars!
Good old Tars.
And Tars sacrifices himself at the end. Tars has a character arc.
Yeah.
Case is a good character, but he's not as memorable as Tars.
And speaking of arcs, the arc turns out to be the only plan they have because Michael Caine is lying about this theory that they can solve the gravity problem about to get people off of the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite harrowing when you find out about that.
Yeah, that's grim because he sends his daughter.
Yeah.
Does she know? I can't remember.
She doesn't know.
No, yeah.
But the other guys kind of figured it out.
She doesn't know. He sent his own daughter out there. He's allowed Coop to go on bad terms with his own family when it wasn't necessary. He's a bit of a psycho.
Yeah. And he's very sad about it at the end.
Cry me a river.
But luckily, love transcends time. And they managed to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the love transcending time thing was a bit cheesy.
But more importantly, gravity transcends time.
Gravity transcends time in a very unusual but cool way.
Yeah. So the whole film's about gravity, right?
Yeah, gravity and time.
Well, How much about time? I think
all
that
about time. He's a man out of time.
Hmm.
And then he's going into a wormhole, and there's the time is relative.
In
and
Interstellar
he's losing time. Earth's losing time.
Yeah.
It's all about time.
They treat time like a resource.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But they're treating time like a resource because of the effects of gravity. It's gravity that is the problem on Earth, and gravity becomes this thing that they have to figure out and understand. And actually, the revelation that gravity is a force that transcends space and time kind of elevates it above time, and it becomes, I don't know, like, do you think of this as a time travel film?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I would say, yeah, definitely. It's got time travel in it, but it's treated in a different way.
But it doesn't have time travel, that's the thing.
Oh, so you can never go back.
Yeah.
They say that, don't they?
And he doesn't
only
go back.
He's just inside. What is he even in?
He's in a hypercube, a tesseract.
Yeah, so he's in a...
You've seen Cube 2, right?
Yeah, he's in Cube. He's in the cube. But yeah, he can still interact with the past.
Because of
gravity.
the way they've harnessed gravity, yeah.
So gravity makes the books move. So the ghost we saw at the beginning, turns out it was Coop in this tesseract.
Yeah.
Which is really confusing.
And no one ever travels in time in this film, just that they encounter some beings who have stepped out of time and can see all time at once.
Yeah, and because they have no idea of, they can't perceive time in the way that we do, Coop gets involved with them to do this. But then they're not like some crazy aliens. They're our future.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like AI.
Yes, yeah, it was like that as well, wasn't it? Well, no, yeah.
Fully evolved Star Children.
Star Children, they are a bit like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they've built this hypercube as this tesseract, they call it actually, but same thing. They've built this tesseract as a way of allowing Coop to experience time and space the way they experience time and space.
Yeah.
And also interact with gravity the way they can interact with gravity. And it's not time travel, in my opinion. It's just describing gravity as something that transcends time, and he is able to harness that.
Yeah, because he doesn't go back in time.
He's perceiving time all at once in 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions.
Okay. It's a very tricky concept to try and understand.
I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
It's really well done, that whole bit. And like the way he gets the message to Murph is brilliant. So he does he gets puts his hand out and gravity stops the dust in certain places for the binary code. And the watch.
Tars kind of becomes more of a star child than Coop does, right? Coop's just a man floating around inside a futuristic device, ultimately. Tars is like disembodied voice. I'm with the future people. I'm hanging out.
It is a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And it all gets a bit, I don't know, again, like too clever for its own good, where it's like...
It's Morse code.
There's Morse code and quantum data, and Tars is translating it into Morse code. And like, how long does it take Coop to program that? We don't know what this quantum data is. It's just like, it's a bit of a MacGuffin, right? It's just like... Tars has gone in and got the quantum data, and the quantum data is the thing we need to do the stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
And it was his connection and love for his daughter that made him the choice to go back in this tesseract and have that interaction with her.
Yeah.
So that's another thing on top of that.
Why is that though? Like just that they needed
they needed someone with a connection to someone.
Yeah.
And they didn't really choose... He keeps saying they didn't choose me, they chose her.
I chose myself.
Yeah, that as well.
Do you like my Matthew McConaughey?
That's good.
Yeah, I think the way that it does become a bit of a time travel movie is that it is what do they call that? A grandfather paradox. Where he's chosen himself, and the story completes itself and causes itself. So I don't see it as him traveling through time, but he is harnessing gravity to communicate across time.
But also he was chosen by our future selves.
Because he would be able to choose himself in his past self. Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, it's so mad.
Cool. Yeah.
It's very Inception.
Yeah, it's very... and of course, the inside of... We need to talk about like how he's got there. So Tars sacrifices himself. He then reveals he's going to sacrifice himself. They go inside the black hole. that's another very 2001 callback, isn't it? What did you think of the kind of presentation of entering the black hole and the Tesseract?
It was good because it wasn't as 2001.
No,
it
it's
had
its own
comparisons to it.
Yeah.
And the fact he has to eject himself and then be out in this sort of blackness, he's just in the dark, and it's kind of like he's out in space, which is everyone's worst fear, being trapped there. But then the transition for that is really well done as well.
Yeah. I could have done with a little bit more psychedelia to get there.
Yeah, but again, that'd be 2001.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And also, this film is nearly 3 hours long. And you know how I feel about that. I was, I enjoyed it. I was enjoying every minute, but I can enjoy a film and I will still say it's too long. Anything over the 2 hour mark, you gotta, come on. You got those editing skills, let's clip it down.
Let's clip it down. But yeah, so he gets out of the wormhole.
And it's bookcases everywhere.
It's bookcases everywhere.
It's great.
And then he gets out of the bookcases.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about the happy ending. What did you think of that?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
It's like, of course I did. I really like everything.
You do like happy ending, don't you? I thought it was unnecessary.
No, it rounded it off nicely.
Yeah.
And and again, he was on this space station, and it looks like Earth, except it's all rounded because they've conquered gravity. And yet they've got a reconstruction of his old house. So he's back to where he started.
But he likes it now.
He likes it, but he's also a bit like, kind of want to leave now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be a caretaker. And he says something like, why are we pretending like we haven't left, like we haven't moved on? We're just trying to stay stuck as caretakers.
He's anti-nostalgia at this point, which is ironic because he was trapped in his own nostalgia when he was living on Earth, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, because he was dreaming about what was happening to Earth beforehand.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of got that back. He just wants to look at where they're going now.
Yeah, he's a wanderer, basically. Yeah.
But he meets Murph, who's still alive, still kicking. She's 100 and something.
Yeah, it's grim.
Yeah, she's been asleep for a bit.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
She's made her way to the station to see him because he's how does he get out? No idea, right? He just pops out of the Tesseract.
Pops out, yeah. And then Tars pops out as well.
Yes, I did like that.
Yeah.
I think Tars coming back to life made up for me feeling like a happy ending was unnecessary. Yeah, because I really like Tars. Because I like Tars more than Coop. I guess this is my problem.
Probably it.
I didn't think all the hubris that Coop's shown in the film, I kind of wanted him to be punished. And
I mean, he's punished quite a bit.
Yes.
More punishment.
Yeah. But I like Tars, and Tars does literally nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So I was happy about Tars getting a happy ending.
Yeah, so it's like Hal and Dave getting a happy ending. Tars and Coop get the happy ending.
They become buddies.
And they go off into space to go and find Brand on her new planet, the one which we haven't seen. And
the titular Interstellar world.
The new Interstellar world where they can raise loads of embryos.
Yeah. Yeah, is that what she's doing? Yeah,
I assume so because she's making the new Earth because she doesn't know if
she doesn't know that Coop
went into the Tesseract and caused all of this crazy shit to happen.
Oh my god! So her character at the end of the film is bedding down, knowing that she's going to die, I guess, and that the colony will continue on its own.
She's very sad.
Yeah.
So Coop wants to go and keep her company.
Yes, good for him. Nice guy. Ditch his dying old lady daughter to go and hang out.
Well, she tells him to leave.
Yes.
She says, you better go.
Yeah.
I'm with my family.
Well, it's just awfully convenient.
Not quite as harsh as that.
She's waited her whole life to see him, and then she gives him permission to just run off on another jolly.
I thought it was very moving.
It's a good film. I liked it. So that's about all we've got time for on this week's episode. Please do join us next time. Next time, we will be looking at history in space. So we've looked at a couple of films that have got a real legacy in film. We're going to look at some films that are talking about more fictional legacies and fictional histories. So what's the first one we're going to look at, James?
So we're going to look at Stargate.
Cool.
A great 90s film.
Yeah, classic. And a real franchise film.
And a real franchise, yeah. SG-1, what a series.
Yeah, we'll need to talk about that, but probably not watch 11 seasons of it.
Probably
plus
not.
Atlantis, plus Universe, plus.
Might be a bit of an overreach.
And then again, we're pairing it with another kind of one-off auteur artistic piece. We're going to be looking at The Fountain by Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah. Now, I remember really loving The Fountain.
Me too.
I know a few people do not love The Fountain.
Some good friends of ours do not love The Fountain.
So I'll be interested to revisit it
Yeah.
and see how it works on our topic of space. Because there is some space travel in there.
Definitely.
There definitely is.
There's some history, there's some space.
History
It's
in space. Excellent. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual social media sites. We are at Through Sci-Fi Pod or at Through Sci-Fi. We also have a website, www.journeythroughsci-fi.com.
You can email us at journeythroughsci-fi@gmail.com. Drop us a line, say hello. We'll probably write back.
We definitely will.
We'll definitely write back. I didn't want to commit to it.
Well, okay, we will probably write back, depending. We've got very busy schedules, you know. Very busy.
High chance of writing back.
Yes.
95% write back setting. Also, you can leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be really helpful. Recommend us to a friend. Anything like that, we'd really appreciate that.
Brilliant. And we'll see you next time.